Like everyone else, I'm just totally shocked and saddened by the news that Kobe Bryant is dead at the age of 41. When I woke up on Sunday and saw this news, it just really threw me. I did the biggest double take of my life when I saw that graphic on Twitter announcing his death. And this is really hard because Kobe was part of that generation of players that I grew up watching. And as is the case with all celebrities, even though you don't know them personally, when one of them you look up to passes away, it just can really hurt. And this is one of those cases. But in addition to Kobe, the other biggest star of my childhood was LeBron James. He was arguably as big as Kobe, if not bigger, and the two always had a friendly rivalry that was a lot of fun to watch. In the late 2000s, there was a legit debate about which one of them was better. But in the 2010s, LeBron became the top dog because age began to wear at Kobe's game, and LeBron finally won a title. But before all that, fans were really starving for a LeBron vs. Kobe NBA Finals matchup. It would have easily been one of the greatest NBA Finals ever, and it would have given major bragging rights to whoever came out on top. But that finals matchup never happened, and honestly, aside from 2, maybe 3 years, it never even came close to happening. So in this video, we're going to pay respect to the legend that was Kobe Bryant by taking a look back and finding out why Kobe and LeBron never met in the NBA Finals. So with all that said, let's get started. So the first year it's plausible that LeBron and Kobe could have met in the NBA Finals is the 2007-2008 season. Now, this year is kind of a reach, I will admit that, but both the Cavs and the Lakers made in-season trades to improve their teams. The Cavs traded for Delonte West, Wally Szczerbiak, Joe Smith, and Ben Wallace, and the Lakers traded for Pau Gasol. That certainly improved their chances. That helped catapult them to a championship-level team. And the Lakers would represent the West in the NBA Finals that year. But the Cavs, they had their work cut out for them. That's why I say this is kind of a reach, because the 07-08 season was the first year of that Boston Celtics Big Three with Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen, and they were just unstoppable that year. They won 66 games and were just really dominant. So, in the Cavs, to their credit, they did go 7 games with the Celtics that year, but that would have been a lot to ask of the Cavs. And even if they did beat the Celtics, they would have had to take on the Pistons, who are not over the hill yet. This Pistons team went 59-23 and still had that core of Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, and those guys. So it would have been hard for the Cavs to win the East if you ask me. So 07-08, I don't think it would have happened. Now the 08-09 season is where it starts to get interesting. This is technically the closest LeBron and Kobe ever came to meeting in the NBA Finals. In the offseason, the Cavs traded for a Milwaukee Bucks scoring point guard Mo Williams, and this proved to be the piece the Cavs were missing. Mo Williams turned out to be LeBron's first quote-unquote sidekick in Cleveland, and that's easy to laugh at in retrospect. But at the time, he was just balling out. People were amazed how well he was playing. And he turned out to make the All-Star team that year. Now, if you look on paper, it says he was a reserve. But he should have made it the first time. I think Allen Iverson made it that year, totally undeservingly. And that's because the fans, out of respect, always vote Iverson in. But Mo Williams deserved to be the All-Star the first time around. And, the Cavs in 08-09, they just had phenomenal chemistry. They went 66-16, and they were 39-2 at home. And their first loss wasn't until their 24th game at home. They started off 23-0. And their first loss was to Kobe, ironically. And they finished 39-2 at home. And their other loss was they rest their starters towards the end of the season. So I don't even really count that. So they very easily could have been 40-1 at home. They just had a phenomenal season in 2008-2009. Of course, they wound up with the best record in the NBA. Winning 66 games usually does that. But not far behind them were the Los Angeles Lakers. They won 65 games. And, during the regular season, both teams were kind of fighting for the best record in case they met in the NBA Finals. Each team wanted home court advantage. But it went to the Cavs by a narrow margin. Once the playoffs rolled around, the Cavs continued their dominance. They made easy work of the Pistons and the Hawks in the first and second round. That is until they ran into the Orlando Magic in the Eastern Conference Finals, and we'll get back to that in a minute. Switching over to the Western Conference, the Lakers had a tougher road. They had a tough 7-game series with the Rockets, and then they had a pretty tough 6-game series with the Denver Nuggets in the conference finals. The Nuggets led by Carmelo Anthony and newly acquired Chauncey Billups. But the Lakers did prevail, and they advanced to the NBA Finals, where they were waiting for the winner in the Eastern Conference. Unfortunately, that would not be the Cavs. Switching back over to the Eastern Conference for a second, the Orlando Magic ended up winning in an upset in 6 games against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And the reason was pretty simple: Dwight Howard. He just totally had his way with the Cavs. He was just pushing them around left and right. And it's because the Cavs had nobody to guard him. Ben Wallace was too old, Zydrunas Ilgauskas was too skinny, and the whole series was just a giant mismatch. And, it's funny, people remember that series as being like a shellacking, the Magic really just giving it to the Cavs. But the Cavs were a Rashard Lewis turnaround three-pointer in Game 4 from that series being 2-2 going back to Cleveland in Game 5. People forget about that. If Lewis doesn't hit that shot, it's 2-2, and it could be a whole totally different series. But anyway, wasn't meant to be. The Cavs lost in 6 games, and it was just extremely heartbreaking as a Cleveland sports fan. And as an NBA fan in general, because I'm sure everybody would prefer to see LeBron and Kobe as opposed to Dwight Howard and Kobe. But anyway, that was the 2008-2009 season. Moving on to the 2009-2010 season. Now, despite winning 66 games the previous year, the Cavs did not stay put. In the offseason, they acquired Shaquille O'Neal in hopes of stopping Dwight Howard, and they also added key players like Anthony Parker and Jamario Moon. And by the trade deadline, they acquired Antoine Jamison from the Wizards, a 2-time All-Star and a borderline All-Star almost every year. So this was by far the best Cavs team of LeBron's first stint in Cleveland, and if they were ever going to win a title his first time in Cleveland, this was going to be the year. Switching over to the Lakers, they also did not stay put despite winning the NBA title. In the offseason, they acquired Ron Artest, so they were serious about repeating as NBA champions. Now, the regular seasons for both the Cavs and the Lakers were both pretty similar to 08-09. They still were the most dominant teams in their respective conferences, and the Cavs once again came out on top with the best record in the NBA to secure home court advantage in a potential NBA Finals matchup with Kobe's Lakers. And heading into the playoffs, the Cavs were the favorites to come out of the East. That's why one of my biggest pet peeves is like when people look back and say, oh, LeBron had no help his first stint in Cleveland, the teams were terrible. Then why were they always the favorites? Why didn't people predict them to lose in like the second round? Anyway, I could make a separate video about that. But yeah, the Cavs were the favorites coming out of the East, and that was despite having a lot of competition. Orlando was still pretty good, and Boston was still pretty good, so it says a lot about that Cavs team and how they played that season. Switching over to the West, the Lakers were still the favorites in their conference because there was really no threat behind them. The Suns were on their last leg with Amari and Steve Nash. The Spurs were really down at the time. They would get it going in a few years with Kawhi, but at the time they were no threat. OKC was too young at the time. And Denver, once George Karl got sick midway through the season, that just took the wind out of their sail, and they kind of fell apart after that. So the Lakers really had no threat. So everybody was predicting Kobe versus LeBron. If there was ever going to be a Kobe versus LeBron NBA Finals, this was going to be the year. Now, as we all know, it didn't end up happening. The Cavs ended up losing to the Celtics in 6 games in the second round of the playoffs. And the whole thing was just very bizarre. It wasn't just that series. Even in the first round against Chicago, the Cavs won in 5 games, but they didn't look very good. A lot of those scores were pretty close. So you could tell something just wasn't right with this team. And it was very puzzling at the time because this was a very dominant Cavs team during the regular season. They essentially had all the pieces in place. LeBron was the MVP, so a lot of people just were kind of left scratching their head like, what happened to this team? And there are a few explanations that you always hear people toss around. The first one I'm not going to get into out of respect, but the second one flies under the radar a lot. And Shaq broke his thumb midway through the season against the Celtics, ironically, and as a result, he missed the last 8 weeks of the season. And Mike Brown, the Cavs coach at the time, made a very stupid decision, if you ask me, to place Shaq back in the starting lineup the first game of the playoffs. I really think that messed up the team's chemistry because in Shaq's absence, they got used to playing at a faster pace. They didn't have to worry about feeding the big man. They could just run up and down the court however they wanted. So I think when he came back, that just kind of slowed them down and messed everything up. But anyway, that's what happened with the Cavs. Switching over to the Western Conference with the Lakers, they had a few bumps in the road, but really there was no major threat to them. In the first round, they went up against that young OKC team and went to 6 games, but the Lakers just used their experience to get the better of them. In the second round, they swept the Jazz. And in the conference finals, they again had a mini scare with the Suns. It was 2-2 in a pivotal Game 5 in LA, and I think Ron Artest hit a buzzer beater. And that kind of, the Lakers went up 3-2 and then won the series in 6 games. And then in the NBA Finals, the Lakers faced the Boston Celtics in what turned out to be a great NBA Finals. It went 7 games. So even though we didn't get a Kobe versus LeBron NBA Finals again, it still was a great series. So just because it wasn't the dream matchup we all wanted doesn't mean it wasn't good. Now, the following offseason is where the whole Kobe versus LeBron thing took a twist and was never really the same if you ask me. In July 2010, LeBron had that big decision show where he announced he was going down to Miami to join Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade. And right there, that just kind of tainted any future LeBron versus Kobe matchup in the finals, because it no longer would have been LeBron versus Kobe. It would have been LeBron and D Wade versus Kobe. And that's kind of lame, 2 against 1. So that just really ended the appeal of a dream LeBron versus Kobe NBA Finals matchup. Now, that said, it's still very possible that Kobe could have faced LeBron in the finals that season, because in the 2010-2011 season, Miami would go on to represent the East in the NBA Finals. And in the West, though the Lakers lost in the second round, they were still a championship-level team. Phil Jackson was still their coach. They still had Pau Gasol, Andrew Bynum, Ron Artest. They still had legitimate players on that team. So just because it didn't happen, it was still very possible that we could have got a LeBron versus Kobe finals. But like I said, it just wouldn't have had the same appeal because it no longer would have been LeBron versus Kobe alone. But moving on, the next potential LeBron versus Kobe NBA Finals matchup would have been in the 2012-2013 season. And this is because in the offseason, the Lakers tried to form a super team of their own when they acquired Dwight Howard and Steve Nash via trade. And on paper, that team absolutely should have went to the NBA Finals. I don't care how old Steve Nash and Kobe were. That team should have got to the finals, where they would have played LeBron's Heat, because the Heat predictably ended up representing the Eastern Conference in the finals. And it would have been a pretty interesting matchup. Now, like I said before, it wouldn't have been the same as a classic LeBron versus Kobe NBA Finals matchup. It just wouldn't have, because it no longer would have been LeBron versus Kobe. It would have been Kobe, Steve Nash, and Dwight Howard versus LeBron, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade. It's like West Side Story or something. It's not one-on-one. So it's ridiculous. And it's another reason I hate super teams, and I think super teams totally destroyed the NBA. But that's a topic for another video. So 2012-2013 was really the last time Kobe and LeBron had a legitimate chance to face each other in the NBA Finals. Kobe would go on to play a few more years with the Lakers, but the Lakers were a bad team by then, so nobody even thought about a Kobe versus LeBron Finals. If you wanted to see them duel, it had to be in the regular season. Sad but true. And that's really the gist of the whole Kobe versus LeBron thing. So to wrap everything up, I'm going to run the numbers really quick. There were only 5 times that Kobe and LeBron could have faced each other in the NBA Finals. And 2 of those times have asterisks next to them because LeBron was on a super team in Miami, so it just wouldn't have been as special. And if you take away the 07-08 season, which I admitted was a stretch, then we're left with only 2 seasons that LeBron and Kobe could have faced off, and they are 08-09 and 09-10. Why is that? Why are there only 2 years? Well, to sum it up quickly, it can be explained by bad timing. Kobe came into the league 7 years before LeBron, and by the time LeBron had his first great team, Kobe was already in his 13th year, so that really explains everything. Still, it is surprising they didn't meet up at least one time. It would have been must-see TV for sure. And that's actually a good argument against the NBA being rigged, because if it was rigged, wouldn't David Stern have made sure Kobe and LeBron met in the finals? Wouldn't he have done everything in his power to make sure that happened? Something to think about. Well guys, that's going to do it for this video. I originally planned on making this well in the future, like sometime in June, but with this shocking news about Kobe, I figured it was a good time to release this. Think of this as my little tribute to the Black Mamba. Now before I sign off, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, please follow me on Twitter, and please consider supporting me on Patreon. I'm Ramen Robbie, and I'll see you guys next time.